Hi. So the title of my talk sounds very long and very complicated, but actually it's a kind of simple subject, but I think very, very profound and very important, which is how to bring meditation into every aspect of our lives, and of course, particularly our working life. So I go into quite a lot of different companies to teach mindfulness and meditation, and very much there's a focus around how to bring it into moments throughout the day. So in the corporate world and also education, healthcare, many different sectors, of course, meditation is becoming hugely popular. And I think there are a few reasons for this. I think one of the reasons is that the language used to describe mindfulness and meditation is very much non-religious. So even though I'm a Buddhist monk, I'm not talking from a religious perspective. So the language used to explain these techniques is very inclusive, very accessible, and because of that, more and more people are attracted to training in these methods. That's one reason. Another reason is there's been a huge amount of scientific research into the benefits of meditation, how it affects our brain chemistry, how it affects our body. So because the evidence from those research projects is so widely available now, people know that this is as important as nutrition and exercise. That knowledge is now filtering into everybody's life, that we need to look after our body, but also our mind. And so because of that, meditation has become something very, very popular. And then I think the third reason why meditation is now so popular is a sort of sad reason, which is that we are just more stressed than ever. And we're looking for solutions. The speed of life has become really manic, and we have so much pressure. And we're constantly upgrading the software on our phones and computers, but we feel that we need an upgrade as well. You know, we're running behind all of this technology, trying to keep up with it. And we're looking for something to help us upgrade our mental software so that we can keep up with the speed of life. So I'm very interested in how stress manifests in our mind and in our body, and then how meditation can help to change that. Of course, meditation is more than just about stress reduction or even well-being. It goes much further than that. And in today's talk, I'm going to address the issue of stress, but also mental focus, productivity, efficiency, creativity. Those are positive aspects. Otherwise, I think people just see meditation as something you use to fix what's broken. And maybe, in fact, some people aren't stressed, or some people enjoy stress. And then they think, well, I don't need to meditate. But it's not just medicine for stress. It goes much further. It's really about optimizing our brain function and becoming more in charge of who we are as people. Having said that, let's start by talking about the issue of stress. So 20 years ago, people were less open about their stress. When I first started teaching in the workplace, people were a little bit embarrassed to say that they were stressed, especially leaders, managers. Maybe it looked like they were failing if their people around them knew they were stressed. I think the culture has changed now. Now it seems to be the opposite. Now if you don't say you're stressed, people think you're lazy. So now we have to go around saying, oh, I'm so stressed I can hardly breathe. And that means you're doing really well. Like if you say to somebody, how are you? They have to say busy. You can't say, well, I'm just chilling, doing nothing. You failed. I mean, to be a successful person, you have to say, I'm so busy, I can hardly walk. I'm so stressed. So people are wearing their stress on their sleeve now. So the good side of that is people are open, talking about how they feel. Obviously, the negative side is we are so stressed. And of course, we are feeling exhausted all the time. And that's basically because our brain is producing huge amounts of stress chemicals, the main one being cortisol. It's called the fight or flight reaction, which a human being is programmed to experience as a matter of survival, just like animals as well, when they're being chased by other animals, like zebra or deer being chased by tigers and lions. They go into fight or flight, and that's what they need to survive. And human beings as well. Maybe centuries ago when we were hunter-gatherers, and we were in danger pretty much all the time, we'd always have that awareness of danger. We'd go into fight or flight mode when we're being attacked by a saber-toothed tiger or whatever it was that was coming to have its dinner. And then we'd go into emergency mode. And what happens to the brain is the amygdala, which is the part of the brain that is connected to stress, causes the release of cortisol. And this makes us ready for fight or flight. So we either fight the enemy or we run away. And then when we're safe, the levels return to normal. We don't need to talk about it or worry about why we were in danger. We're just back to normal. That's the optimum picture of survival with fight or flight. But of course, what happens to us now is we're not living in the wilderness and we're not being chased by animals or people with spears. We are in our offices, we're in our homes, and yet the brain is relating to pressure in exactly the same way. So whenever there's an email or a phone call or a notification, the body has this kind of little jolt of cortisol. Basically, we go into a kind of very microscopic kind of fight or flight. We're not sweating and panicking. Sometimes we are, of course, but generally we're not. And the problem is these moments build up during the day. So we spend our day lurching from one cortisol spike to the next. And we don't seem to have any downtime. We're just on that high alert all the time. And this makes us very tired. And it makes us less productive. It makes us less efficient, less happy, more worn out. So the great thing about practicing meditation techniques and being mindful during the day is that it's been proved that this reduces the cortisol. It doesn't take our stress away. I mean, sometimes people think, oh, if I meditate, does that take all my stress away and then I'll be less efficient? In fact, I went to a company once many, many years ago, before this kind of knowledge was so widespread. I went into a company to teach meditation, and the boss took me aside and said, don't make them too relaxed. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I'd like them to keep working. I mean, I think his image of meditation was that you'd be so chilled that you'd just kind of lounge around in this, behind your desk, the phones are ringing, you don't really care. Feet up, profits down. Because maybe there is an image of meditation that it's very disconnected from reality. I think some people think meditation means you close your eyes, you drift away, you empty your mind. And what has that got to do with work? Well, let me tell you, if you try to close your eyes and empty your mind, you're going to find that really hard anyway, because meditation is not about clearing the mind. If you try to clear the mind, you end up with a lot of stress, actually, trying to push the thoughts away. And so, of course, I explained to this man that the meditation class wouldn't make his staff less efficient. It would make them more efficient, because don't you want people to be happy, focused, productive? And stress, if you learn to reduce the chemistry of stress, the cortisol, you can be more fresh, more alert, more aware. But you're not less efficient. You're not less functional. And in fact, not all stress is bad. Maybe there's a kind of stress that's more like energy, motivation, drive, efficiency. I'm talking about when it becomes toxic and exhausting. So it's been shown that if you practice mindfulness, this reduces the overactivity of the amygdala in the brain, which is that stress receptor or stress watchtower in the brain. And so those chemicals are going to start to get, it's like cooling down the engines. You're going to be less anxious, less stressed. But of course, ultimately, what is stress? Stress is our thoughts, isn't it? And how the mind relates to our thoughts. You know, people always go around saying, I have stress because of my boss, my colleagues, my clients, my husband, my wife, my children, the list, you know, the list. Who's got a list? the list of things that make us stressed, I'm not denying that those things are difficult in our lives, but wouldn't you say it's more our thoughts about our boss, our job, our colleagues, our clients, our thoughts about those things? That's the problem, and the way the mind goes into negative thinking or exhaustion. We have so many thoughts that we don't actually need, repeated thoughts. We have between 60 and 80,000 thoughts per day. Many of them are repeats. So meditation is not about removing the thoughts. It's not about becoming a zombie or going into a coma. It's not. But it is about learning to become the boss of your own mind. And I think that's a really crucial thing, because I think we are educated, adult, professional, free-thinking people in control of our lives, but not in control of our minds. And that's a very shocking thing to hear and to think about, but it's really true. If you think about how we react to life in a very impulsive way, we're in an area of bad traffic, aren't we? So Los Angeles traffic is always horrendous. And what happens when you're stuck in traffic and you feel irritated, wound up, frustrated, even angry? You know that's not an intelligent reaction. You don't plan the reaction. You don't sit there thinking, okay, now I'm going to get upset. You don't wake up in the morning thinking, right, I'm going to do anxiety at lunchtime, depression for tea. I hope I feel really bad by 6 p.m. We don't plan our moods. We plan everything else. So who's the boss of our mind? Are we choosing our thoughts, or our thoughts choosing us? I mean, it's not literally like that, but it feels like that, where we're not really in control of what our mind does. It goes into negative thinking, it goes into worry, it goes into stress very easily. So meditation is where you actually learn how to choose where to send your focus and what to do with your mind. And a very typical meditation technique is to focus on your own breathing. I'm not going to go too much into the technique today, because tomorrow morning I'm giving a class which I'm sure you'll find interesting if you want to learn more. But just to break down the sort of technology of it, is that you focus, for example, on your own breathing, and maybe you do that for 10 minutes. You know, it's a session focusing on your breathing. What are you doing? You're focusing on your breathing, but then your mind is running away. The mind wanders. So you're breathing with awareness, and then suddenly the mind is thinking about something else. That's when people think they've failed. That's when people who meditate think they got it wrong. Like because they think they're supposed to be doing it perfectly. But there's a reason why it's called practice. It's not perfect, it's practice, which means you're training. So you're focusing on your breathing, and then the mind wanders, and that's the chance to practice returning. The mind wanders, and then you return. Maybe not straight away, maybe it wanders for 5 minutes. And it goes from one thing to the next. I mean, you're planning dinner, then you're skiing in the Alps, and then you're, I don't know, planning revenge or writing a really juicy email. You know, it goes all over the place, and then you catch the attention, and that's when you can return to the breath, or whatever the meditation focus is. There are many ways. Breath is the most common. So every time you bring your attention back to your breath, you are exercising the power of choice. Because your mind lost direction. It's almost like you were driving a car, and then you lost control of the wheel, and the car is going all over the place. And now you get back behind the wheel of the car, and you turn it around and drive it back to the breath. That's a big choice. You've made a choice to detach from those thoughts and come back to the moment, the present moment. If you train in that every day, you're going to get better at it. A little bit like lifting weights. If you go to the gym, you lift weights, you get muscles. This is the muscle of mindfulness. Through training again and again. Every time you bring your attention back to the breath, you are detaching from the wandering mind and choosing to send your focus where you want to send it. So if you train in that every day, you're going to get more proficient at that. And over time, you're going to find that you can step out of a negative mood more easily. You can step into happiness more easily. And I think people's notions of happiness tend to be very much result-orientated, you know? I'll be happy when. I'll be happy because. Who's got the list? It's the list again, isn't it? The list of things I need, and then I will be happy. Happy when, happy if, happy because. So we think happiness will come to us when everything outside works out. But what about choosing? Choosing to put your attention into a positive state. And you could do that anywhere. You could do that in traffic. You could do that standing in line at an airport where you're feeling impatient and tired, but you choose to put your attention into a positive mind state, which means just to be present and detached from those wandering thoughts. And that way you're gaining a kind of mastery over your own mind, which is going to really help to transform our relationship with our thoughts. I think that's what meditation is about, transforming our relationship with our thoughts. It's not about killing the thoughts. It's not about silencing the thoughts. It's not about clearing the mind. But it's about developing a different relationship where you can choose what your mind does and how it feels. So you're learning that sense of kind of becoming the boss internally. So people meditate every day or regularly anyway. It's just like exercise. It doesn't work if you do it once a year. It doesn't work if you keep it up your sleeve for emergencies. You know, you pull it out of the sleeve in an emergency. That won't happen. Because when we're in an emergency, our default state takes over. We don't have the presence of mind to think, oh, I'm stressed, shall I meditate? That's not going to happen. But if you've meditated every day, then when you are in an emergency, a difficult situation, that meditation energy will kick in automatically because you've trained to not get too caught up in negative thinking. And you've trained in how to be present and how to kind of free your mind. You've trained in that, so this becomes your strength whenever you need it. But what's really crucial is to bring that energy into everything we do. I think a lot of people view meditation as something quite separate from their daily life. You know, they meditate at home, which is great, and I would certainly recommend doing 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever, every morning. But then they kind of leave it at home, and then they go to work and they're like a different person. You've got the person who meditates and then the stressed person at work. It's like having two people inside you, and they never meet. So bring your meditation to work. Bring it to work with you. How you can do that is through practicing moments of mindfulness throughout the day. I don't mean running off into a corner and doing meditation 20 times a day. That you'd probably get fired if you did that, because you're not going to get much done. But I'm talking about something much more microscopic moments, tiny moments throughout the day, even while you're busy. So you're not stopping your activities. You're not even going into slow motion. You know, some people do that, and I don't know if it's so effective. You know, they think to be mindful during the day, they have to sort of drink their tea painfully, slowly, and everything's very kind of slow motion, you know. Or they walk very, very slowly. Everything's slow, everything's calm. That's not very dynamic, and in fact it leads to another kind of separation where you decide everything has to slow down for you to be mindful. So when things are fast, you can't be mindful. I would recommend something quite different, which is just to drop into those moments of awareness throughout the day, and maybe to start doing that with very specific actions. Because this all sounds great, but how do you actually make a habit of it? You've got to give yourself very specific, you know, you could start with brushing your teeth. You could start with combing your hair, or, well, I don't have hair, but if I had hair, I would try and comb it mindfully. Brushing the teeth mindfully. I mean, when we're brushing our teeth physically, but mentally we're often somewhere else. So why not just feel the brush against the tooth? I mean, that's really what mindfulness is. It's that moment where you connect with your senses and you're just totally there while you're doing something like brushing your teeth or washing your hands. You're not thinking about washing your hands, you're just washing your hands. But you are in that mindful moment, and you're washing your hands in the same way, same speed, but the mind is connected to what you're doing, and you're just dropping into that aware state many, many times a day. Maybe you could be in your office, even if it's a very busy, open office with lots of people, lots of noise. You could spend a moment feeling the chair under your body, just literally feeling the sensation of the chair underneath you, underneath you and behind you. You're just feeling it through your body, or the ground under your feet. The first time I discovered this for myself was really interesting. I'd already been meditating. I was already a monk, and I'd been meditating for a few years, but I never really understood this idea of bringing it into daily life. I was doing it in a very structured way. In fact, I was doing 2 hours a day, or sometimes even more, sitting down cross-legged on the floor, but I didn't know how to bring it into ordinary life. And the first time I discovered this was I was in London, and I was on we call it the tube, the underground, the metro, the subway. And I was really tired. I'd flown in the night before. I hadn't had breakfast. I was tired, not feeling so good. It was rush hour. You can't get a seat. There's no air conditioning. I mean, everything's stacked up against you to make you miserable. And I'm standing there on the train and feeling that kind of exhaustion or sort of misery rising. And then I just remembered to be mindful. I decided to be mindful from this station to the next. So not too long, just from this stop to the next. So what I did was, instead of feeling all those negative feelings, I just felt the ground under my feet. And I felt the sway of the train. I also had a bag on my shoulder, and the strap of the bag was pressing down on my shoulder. And I decided to change my perception of that feeling, because first of all, it was tired, kind of pushing down. But then I thought, well, people pay money to be massaged. It's the same thing, isn't it? I mean, heat as well. People pay money to go to a sauna. But if you're on a train and it's hot, you feel angry about it, but it's a free sauna. So I just decided to change my perception by experiencing the sensations without judging the sensations. That's one of the key components of mindfulness. You experience the sensation without judging it, good, bad, nice, not nice. Just feel it. So I felt the ground under my feet. I felt the bag pushing down on my shoulder. I felt the sway of the train. I felt my breathing. I just did this in short bursts during that train journey. And I got out of the train feeling 10 years younger. I just felt energized. I felt like my batteries had been recharged. And so that was the first time I experienced it. And since then, I've done this every day, many times. I travel a lot. So I'm in airports a lot, standing in line in airports, in security, or the check-in. There's 3 queues, isn't there? Check-in, security, gate. 3 chances, 3 free holidays. When you're waiting for something, stuck in traffic, standing in line, internet slows down, computer slows down, somebody sends you a huge attachment on your phone, it takes ages to download. What else? You phone up somewhere, they put you on hold, you're number 20 in the queue. These are moments, aren't they? Moments of waiting. So if you start with cleaning your teeth and washing your hands mindfully and then progress to moments of waiting, it starts to become very rich, very enriching. Because when you're waiting for something, even a small thing such as pressing the button on the elevator and waiting for the elevator to show up, there's that moment where we don't just relax, we go into that kind of stuck state. That's cortisol. The body is producing the stress hormone because we're waiting, stuck in traffic, standing in line. The cortisol is bubbling away because we're waiting and we're stuck. Instead, you could use that as a mindful moment. So you just feel the ground under your feet, you go into that mindful state. It sounds simple, but you're actually rewiring your own brain. I don't mean our brain is full of wires, but you know what I mean. We're reprogramming our stress reactivity. Because what happens in our brain is that we have this automatic association between a stressful situation and tension. We don't plan it. We don't think, hey, I'm stressed, let me get tense. It just happens. It's like two wires are joined together. When I'm stuck somewhere, I need to be tense. It's not intellectualized, it just happens. Here in this exercise, you're putting two different wires together. Stressful situation, relaxed response. Put those two together, create a new connection mentally. Let that become a habit. That doesn't make you passive. It doesn't turn you into like a doormat where you just, people abuse and insult you and you're like, hey, I don't care, I'm so mindful. It's not like that. It just means you don't get so upset, you don't get wound up, you can stay calm, and you're learning to relax against the odds, against the grain. Do you know what I mean? And so this becomes a habit, and then you're doing it in line, standing in line, traffic, computer slowing down, waiting for the elevator, waiting for the kettle to boil, anything. But because you're creating that habit, it means when you're in the bigger stress of life, you'll have already created the habit of not going into a stress reaction, but staying calm, keeping your head cool, and then you can make the right choices. So you're training in that way. Also, what you're doing in this very simple exercise of being relaxed when you're standing in line or stuck in traffic or waiting for anything, what you're doing is you're learning what I would call unconditional joy. Unconditional joy or happiness. Because normally our happiness and joy are very conditional. Happy if, happy when, have to be on the beach, have to have nice experiences, have to have this, have to have that, then I will be happy. Well, actually, this is a different thing, because next time you're stuck in traffic, you might get a little bit interested or even excited and think, great, I can do that thing now. Bring it on. I can use this. So you're sort of open to that situation as a training opportunity. And so as well as developing that calmness in stress, you're developing the ability to be happy against the odds. So you're learning to have independent happiness. And it means you can meet discomfort in a creative way. And all creativity stems from there. Genuine creativity is when you're not frightened of being uncomfortable. Most people are kind of frightened of being uncomfortable. Naturally, obviously, of course. But we never get creative when we're frightened. But if you can meet discomfort in a courageous, open-hearted way, you can be really creative and achieve amazing things. So I've talked a little bit about stress. I've talked about the cortisol reaction in the body. I've talked about thoughts. I've talked about meditation and how to, for example, using the breathing. If any of you come to the class tomorrow, we'll look into that into more detail. How to use your breathing so that you're learning to be less controlled by your thoughts. And I've also talked about these mindful moments throughout the day. They're crucial, because otherwise the meditation is just in the morning or the evening, and the rest of the day there's no connection. But I also want to talk about focus and presence. Because as I mentioned at the start of this session, meditation and mindfulness are not just about stress reduction. In fact, even saying stress reduction to me sounds very boring. I would talk about transformation. I would talk about using stress in a creative way. But it is more than that. It's more than just about stress or well-being even. It's really also about focusing and being aware and having that mental sharpness. You're honing your ability to concentrate. And of course, this is, I think, necessary now more than ever, because we live with such distraction. What is the thing that's happened to us now that wasn't there when we were kids? Is we all have phones in our pocket. We all have our office in our pocket, which of course can be great for our work. It's changed the landscape totally of how we operate. But the downside of that is we're never really present. We're always somewhere else. So we've become more distracted as a species, really, more absent. We're not in the moment, we're in somebody else's moment. I mean, nowadays people, when they're eating food, they're checking what other people are eating on social media. You know, what's everyone else eating? Or photograph my food and post it to see if other people like it. So there's this absence and comparison all the time, isn't there? And the way our phone constantly sends us notifications can make us very distracted. And you see this when you watch any kind of media, TV or movies. You see how fast everything is compared to how it used to be. Why is that? It's because we have more distractible minds. If you watch old movies, they seem kind of boring, don't they? We call it art house now. But modern, it's very, very fast, which seems more exciting and more creative. It can be, but it also has something to do with how distracted we are. We need constant stimulation to feel alive. And the downside of this is it's made it harder for us to concentrate. So this makes our work suffer. Also, I teach a lot of mindfulness in schools, and kids are really distracted, so they're not learning properly because their mind is so scattered. But also in our personal life, it means we're never really present. We go to beautiful places, but we're not really there. How many meals have we eaten which we haven't even tasted? How many movies have we watched where we can't even remember what was in the movie? You get halfway through a movie, and you have to kind of nudge your neighbor to say what happened, because we're not there. The mind is so easily distracted. Well, if you practice these techniques, such as mindfulness and meditation, you are honing your focus. You're training in how to be present and how to sharpen your focus, like laser-like focus. It makes you very powerful mentally because you can be completely on the button. And it's easy to see how that works. If you're, for example, meditating with your breathing, there's a technique where you start by feeling the breathing generally. I'm not talking here about deep breathing, just ordinary breathing. And you're sort of feeling the breath in your body, but then you progress to feeling the air brushing against the edge of your nostrils. That's something we don't normally feel. The air brushing against the edge of the skin as you breathe in and breathe out, either your nostrils or your lips if you breathe through the mouth. That's a very subtle sensation, and you're focusing on that, and then of course your mind wanders and you keep bringing it back to that. That's going to train you in concentration, but not a sort of tense concentration. It's an amazing mixture of being concentrated and relaxed at the same time. And if you can create that mixture, you can achieve a lot because you're not getting tired. Most people, when they concentrate, they get tired because they kind of, like forcing themselves into a concentrated state. It's exhausting. But if you meditate, you're building an ability to focus and be very relaxed at the same time. And that amazing combination of laser-like focus and a lot of space creates a very interesting mentality that is very powerful in terms of your work, but also in terms of enjoying life and being in this moment and being able to be able to find simple things enjoyable. Just sitting on a bench eating a sandwich in your lunch break, you can be in that moment feeling happy, really seeing the grass, the flowers, the things we normally don't notice. I think we do live in a culture that's very much about not appreciating, not being grateful, not being happy, because we're constantly shown imagery that makes us feel we're not thin enough, not beautiful enough, not rich enough, not driving the right car. I mean, that's the machinery of our society. And I think it's important for us to learn not to buy into that too much. Otherwise, we just end up feeling dissatisfied all the time. And this mindfulness approach to life can help you to find the small things satisfying and interesting. And then people say, well, will that take away my ambition? Because I want to be successful, I want to be rich or whatever. Maybe they say that, and it doesn't. It doesn't take away your ambition at all. It simply means that you aren't stressing all the time about not having enough. Or, the more we think we don't look the right way or feel or have enough, the more we're creating a sense of lack or deprivation in our mind, even if we have everything. So I think mindfulness changes the balance and helps you to enjoy the moment more. So we're talking about stress reduction. We're talking about mental focus. We're talking about being present. I think there's another element as well, which is to feel connected. More than ever in human history, we're so connected and yet so lonely. You know? This connectivity through, of course, the internet, and yet at the same time isolation. Do you know what I mean? It feels like that sometimes, that we can connect anywhere, anyhow, but there's a sense of not really connecting, or sometimes the connection feels like it's superficial, or we're not sure even why we're connecting. Whereas if we can practice mindfulness with a sense of compassion. Compassion to me is about connectivity, interdependence. This whole world is interdependent. I depend on you, you depend on me, we depend on the flowers and plants for the air we breathe. We all depend on everything else. Everything depends on everything. Everything is linked. Everything is connected. And if we can honor that connection in a positive way and develop a real intention or wish to be of benefit to others, that can bring enormous mental wealth to your experience. Sure, some people are doing amazing things. They are doing charitable enterprises and helping many people. Maybe we're not, but it doesn't have to be always something so obvious. It can simply be about feeling that we are part of everybody else and we want to contribute to some kind of peace in the world around us. So our way of behaving can be harmonious, ethical, compassionate, kind. Sometimes people think to do well in the world you have to kind of walk all over each other. I think that's an old paradigm. It's the old paradigm. The new paradigm is that actually compassion, empathy, understanding, positive relationships means everyone does better. So what I'm talking about here is how to connect mindfulness and meditation to a journey of compassion. Compassion's a funny word because people think it means you just feel sorry for people or you feel upset when others are suffering. It's more than that. It's about actually feeling that we can contribute positively to the world around us, and also we can stop judging each other so harshly. We tend to judge each other really harshly. We're constantly criticizing others and constantly feeling negative towards others and feeling like they should be different, or how dare they, or who do they think they are. Actually, compassion is about understanding what makes people tick and why they behave the way they behave, and having a little bit less judgment, which doesn't mean you become a victim or you lose your ability to make changes. It just means you understand others better and you're less spiteful or less negative, and also you want to help others, and that kind of spreads like ripples, doesn't it? If you're positive towards those around you, that gives them the strength to be positive to those they meet. So you've kind of sent out ripples. In inner peace inside the mind leads to a sense of peace around us. And so when I meditate, I always start my session by sitting and making the intention, I'm doing this for myself but also for others. May this benefit others. Just making that wish at the start of my meditation session means that the practice goes in that direction, because motivation is everything, intention is everything. And then at the end of a meditation session, I repeat that intention. I spend a moment thinking, right, I've done this for me, but also for others. So that moves the meditation journey along a path of building and training in compassion. Now, the really interesting thing about this is in the scanners, the MRI machines and other types of brain scans that they've done on people who meditate, the results are much stronger on those who meditate with compassion. The cortisol is lower. The areas of the brain connected to intention, the prefrontal motor cortex, all the areas of the brain connected to activity, to benefit others, are lit up, more strong. So the compassion side of meditation actually leads to more happiness and greater results. I think also it has something to do with how we deal with our own thoughts. Some people find that they're really quite unkind to themselves. They're quite harsh towards themselves, judgmental. And of course, that's going to affect the way we relate to others. If we're constantly punishing ourselves for our thoughts and our emotions and feeling really kind of aggressive towards our own mind, that's going to definitely affect our relationships professionally and personally. So one of the most amazing things about meditation is you learn to make friends with your own mind. You learn to make friends with your own mind. How? Is because when you're meditating and then the mind wanders and then you capture the attention, you don't have to feel like you've failed. You don't have to feel tense or upset. You just accept that your mind wandered and you gently bring the attention back to the breathing. They did an experiment in Germany in one of these labs where they test the brains of meditators, and they got one group to meditate with the instruction, when your mind wanders, just bring it back to the breath. They got the second group to meditate, and they were told, when your mind wanders, just accept that and gently come back to the breath. The cortisol levels in group 2 were way lower. The compassion they were developing towards their own mind had an amazing effect on their body chemistry. So when you learn to be less at war with your own thoughts, then you can have a much more productive, creative, happy experience of your life and those around you. Inner peace leads to outer peace. And what inner peace means is to stop attacking our own mind, to stop feeling attacked by our own mind, but to have some kind of resolving of that inside in terms of how you deal with the thoughts. So I think that's a crucial aspect of meditation, is you are at peace with your mind. So this is, if you remember one thing from this talk, please remember that, which is that when your mind wanders and when you're meditating, you have not failed. Actually, it's given you a chance to come back to the breath. And so you actually feel okay about the wandering mind. It's not your enemy, it's your friend. And this is an amazing transformation in your meditation practice, because you're no longer fighting inside. Otherwise, it's a nightmare. You're sitting there with the breathing, then you're thinking, oh no, come back to the breath. It's kind of exhausting. It's like climbing up a hill, dragging a bag of rocks behind you. It's not fun at all. But if you change your mentality into this kind of self-acceptance, this really creates a strong meditation journey and can benefit our relationships as a whole. So I hope that the talk has gone some way to addressing this interesting issue of upgrading our mental software and optimizing our performance as a person in the workplace, but also in our life in general. And I hope it's given you some understanding around how meditation is not just about changing our stress patterns, but also about becoming happier, more focused, more kind. There's all these positive aspects as well to the meditation journey. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope it was useful.